All right, welcome everyone. My name is Julien Genestoux. I'm the CEO and founder of Unlock Protocol. And today we're going to talk briefly, about 15 minutes, about multi-brand memberships in a composable Web3 world. First of all, welcome. As I said, my name is Julien. I'm the CEO and founder at Unlock. I'm French, but I live in the US. And so if there's anything that's unclear, feel free to interrupt me, raise your hand. I think this can be very participatory if you have questions. So let's talk quickly about a key concept in business, which is acquisition versus retention. If you think about the web at this point, it's about 25 years in. And the big driver of growth on the web over the last 25 years has been acquisition. Basically, people coming online, and the big winners in that market have been things like search engine marketing and SEO, where basically, again, 20 years ago, the cost of acquiring customers was almost free. But they have skyrocketed since then because basically, our time online is now very, very busy. And I found numbers online that date from a couple of weeks ago, where basically the cost of acquiring customer went from $9 to $29 around e-commerce, which is pretty big increase. At the same time, some very interesting data emerged as well, is that about 80% of the profit for e-commerce companies come from a small subset of customers, about 20% of loyal customers that are coming over and over to the platform. And this is a theme that will obviously come back during this presentation. The growth is driven by multiple things. Obviously, as I said, crowded space, so you're competing with more people to acquire customers. The advertising costs have been increasing for some reason. It's weird because on the other end, it doesn't feel like, when you're a publisher, it doesn't feel like you're making more money from ads. I guess the platforms in the middle are taking more and more. But also the regulatory pressure, as well as the pressure that Apple puts, have made ads performing less well, in practice being more costly to convert. So for example, I'm sure you know this, but Apple recently, about 2 years ago now, announced that they're blocking third-party cookies, which means that ads convert not as well, which means that advertisers have to pay more to convert people here. Similarly, in Europe and in the US, you probably have heard of GDPR, CCPA, which are regulations put in place this time by governments, not companies that want to act as governments, to make it harder to track users, and arguably, even though this is not fully proven yet, make these ads less likely to convert and less profitable. However, one really interesting thing to realize, customers are already brand pilled. I see in the audience here, I can probably find 5 different brands just by looking at your glasses, your t-shirts, your shoes, your laptop. Obviously, you can see what kind of laptop I have. And so that means that we as consumers are already kind of very much, loyal to some brands. We're willing to advertise for them, oftentimes for free. Or even pay to advertise. Like I paid this laptop a lot of money to actually show a logo to everyone when I'm at a conference. I'm sure Thibaut bought a very expensive shirt to actually show everyone what kind of a shirt he's paying. Airline companies will give you little tags to put on your luggage, especially when you're loyal, and they're literally using you as a moving ad for their brand. So we are doing this, and I'd say even further, some of us, and especially in younger generation, will go very long ways to show some of the brands that they affiliate with, whether it's clothing brands, or even sometimes affiliation that they care about very much. However, one thing that is very interesting is our digital life are still mostly clean from that perspective. Your Facebook avatar doesn't have a Nike logo on it or any of that. And when you go online in the virtual world, like we've seen in the previous presentation, oftentimes you don't actually have brand. You're not doing marketing. And so that's kind of interesting to realize, as much as in the physical world, we are very much a brand pilled. In the digital world, we're still mostly clean from a marketing perspective on that point. A couple of years ago, Zuckerman, a guy who runs a marketing firm, came up with a pretty clear framework around the idea of memberships. The idea of, okay, how do people kind of relate to brands or to organization through four different things. First one, status. It's a badge, it's an avatar, it's something that shows that you belong to a group. And so obviously when you are an airline, a loyal customer, you have a card that actually shows that you are one of these loyal people. The second one is what they call access. Taking on the airline thing, the obvious access that you get is the fast track lane. No need to go through the heavy check-in or even access to the lounges. Another type of access is discount codes, like, oh, you get these things, and it's kind of a sense of exclusivity here that makes you feel like you're part of a group. An interesting one that is not completely used in many cases, but I think has a ton of potential when it comes to the online lives, is the idea of power. What kind of control do I have? What kind of co-ownership do I have on the brand, on its marketing, on its design process, and how do I influence what the brand is going to do in the future? This is actually very interesting in a negative way. I'm sure people who live in the US have heard about the Budweiser challenge, I'd say. So for those who don't know, Budweiser had a lot of marketing around transgender issues recently, and they've alienated a lot of their existing customer base. Apparently the average Midwestern white guy is not a huge fan of the concept of transgender and trans identity. And that created a massive backlash. And in some way, they took control of the governance, I mean, in a very abstract way, of Budweiser in that way. I learned recently that Budweiser is not the most drunk beer brand in the US anymore. After that, and which is kind of really, really fascinating when you think about this. And so in some way, the population, the members of the Budweiser group, I guess, for lack of a better word, cult, have decided that this is not the direction that they want to go to. And the fourth way to think about the stuff that we get on as part of the membership is stuff, literally. It is a mixed bag of things that goes from swag, so getting these, taking on the airlines, little pouches with your a toothbrush in it that shows that you have a certain status there, or when you're part of a for example a subscriber to a New Yorker, you get the New Yorker tote bag, which is part of that belonging, part of that marketing thing that exists there. Again, all of these things, if you think of them, they're mostly happening in the physical world, IRL, offline, and not very much online. An interesting thing as well that I haven't talked about yet in the physical world, and I think it's, even though it's happening there, it's actually very complicated to make it happen, is the idea of multiplayer memberships. One of the obvious or most frequent use cases on that front is American Express. It's a payment card that some of us might have in their wallet, and American Express not only is, has a loyalty program that you earn points, they also have an interesting thing where every month they introduce new deals with specific vendors, and that is a way to kind of create traffic specifically for these vendors. So maybe for a while you get a discount at IKEA, you get twice as many points, or some other discount code and thing like this. What's interesting here is, like, obviously it's a multiplayer in the sense that there is the customer, obviously one customer, one American Express brand, payment brand, but then there's multiple retailers in that scenario that are playing in that. It is really, really hard to build that kind of thing, and only something like American Express can actually build this because they act as the middleman on the payment. So they know that you've actually paid for something at IKEA to give you the discount. It would be much harder for Starbucks to give you a discount at IKEA because Starbucks has no way to know whether you've actually been to IKEA to buy some goods there. And we'll see here that obviously the digital version of these membership has a massive role to play. Another example here that works is airlines and car rentals companies. Oftentimes you get discount or loyalty programs at hotels and stuff like this. It usually works on a kind of self-disclosing way. Like, I tell the airline company, or rather the car rental company or the hotel company, that I have a loyalty program, and it is massively abused. You probably all, I mean, I don't know if you do this, but I do that sometimes. When I rent a car, I look for a discount code from another company because I know that I can get a cheaper price here. It gets abused because it's really, really hard to enforce. From a legal perspective, but even from a technical perspective, it's really hard for the car rental company to actually have the database of customers of an airline. It would be illegal because of GDPR in many cases, but also very technically difficult. Like, these are completely different IT systems, and integrating these two is a nightmare. So again, hard to scale because there's no shared infrastructure or database. And I guess you're seeing where we're going here with this shared infrastructure or database. obviously. Blockchains, and I guess that's the theme of a place like we are at FCC, do provide that shared infrastructure. And what's interesting here is like non-fungible tokens specifically can be very good object to represent a membership between someone and a brand, an organization, a group of any kind. However, I want to point that not every NFT is good for this. Specifically, if you think about NFTs that look like a monkey, the collectible use case have a lot of limitations or a lot of characteristics that are actually not very well suited for loyalty and membership. The first one is transferability. You, as a brand, if you have loyal customers, you don't want them to be able to transfer. Not just from a business perspective because you would lose business to other people, but because it means that they're not loyal and you want loyal customers. And so it kind of creates a very strange dynamic to say, my loyal customers, I allow them to not be loyal anymore by transferring the loyalty to someone else. Feels like it's not about loyalty anymore. Another key aspect is the idea of expiration. When you have a membership program, a loyalty program, you want to make sure that the loyal users are still loyal. If you use a regular, monkey picture or other PFP kind of NFT, you have no way of knowing whether this is an actually engaged customer in the last week, in the last month, or whether somebody that acquired that NFT 2 years ago and was just not engaged with the brand anymore. So having expiration, kind of garbage collection mechanism allows you to make sure that your customers, your loyal customers, are still fairly active. So that's the two limitation of existing NFTs, I'd say. Then there's also opportunities to build better kind of NFTs through things like programmability. So most NFT contracts, there's two specifications, ERC 721, ERC 1155. They're fairly, they're set in stone for sure, and they're also not very programmable. There's no really way to kind of change the behavior that would basically, say something like the price can go up or down on the primary market. There's actually usually not even a primary market for these things. It's only, they've been minted a long time ago. It's only secondary markets. We can create better kind of NFTs that would have the logic around what happens when a user transfers, if they want to transfer, or can they transfer? What happens when a user purchases? Are they getting airdropped, other loyalty tokens at the same time? What happens when, a user's membership expires? There are things that become really interesting. Another aspect that obviously is quite interesting in the context of these blockchains is the gamification. Obviously, blockchains are, there's money, but you can think of money as a point system in some way. And if you think about point system, obviously you can think about gamification of these memberships. So, okay, you want to invite 2 friends to join the membership program, we'll give you automatically an extra number of points that allow you to do this. You've checked in with the brand, 5 times in the last 3 months. Boom, you earn more points, you earn more discount codes, et cetera, in a way that can be transparent. Everybody can see. On-chain, which means that you actually don't have to run that infrastructure. It's real, serverless kind of infrastructure. It runs on the chain. So really, NFTs as a concept are a really well-suited mechanism, but the NFTs that we've seen so far could be better, and that's what we discussed. So adding timestamps to NFTs, again, as I said earlier, Unlock specifically is a protocol for memberships that has, by default, an expiration date on every single NFT. So when you get a ticket, when you get a membership, it has an expiration date, which means that after that point, it shouldn't be considered valid. And as a matter of fact, the contract will actually not consider it valid, so that if you try to retrieve the status of someone, you'll get a status of not member if that membership expired, even though they might have had the NFT in the past and have not explicitly transferred it. It becomes really easy to kind of rank now users by the most active, the most engaged ones, to the least engaged ones, which is not possible with the regular NFTs. You can see, okay, this is the cohort of people. I actually have no way of doing this. Another key aspect of this expiration is that you can have recurring memberships. So you can have a system where people pay every month. A good example of this is obviously Amazon Prime. It's a membership program. It's one that actually creates some really, really interesting dynamics for Amazon, and we'll talk about this in a second. But the fact that it expires either every month or every year, depending on what you choose, means that you have to keep paying to actually maintain that status, which is a massive opportunity for Amazon. Let's talk actually a bit more about Amazon. For 3 consecutive years, 2018, 19, and 20, Amazon's profits were exactly the sales of Amazon Prime. So basically, you could say Amazon, the only way they can make money was actually to sell these memberships, which are 100% margin. Obviously, it doesn't cost them anything to actually sell these membership, rather than actually sell goods and actually create engagement. I don't have the numbers here, but they show that on average, an Amazon Prime customer pays 7 times their Prime membership in fees every year. So basically, the idea that you get a good deal with Prime is maybe you do, but actually Amazon gets a much better deal here. Unlock Protocol, we are a protocol that actually creates memberships in the form of NFTs and allows anyone, really technical and non-technical, by a pretty simple dashboard to create or a membership smart contract. And these membership can be used for subscription, recurring, ticketing, ticket to application, token gating to application, media subscription, etc. It is fully open source. It is community governed by the community of people that use the protocol, and we've built a bunch of application libraries and dev tools. I founded the company in 2018, so a couple of years ago now, and we have a diverse team of people from Google, Facebook, GoDaddy, and others. Cool. Today, there's already a bunch of loyalty platforms and applications that are using Unlock under the hood. You can see some examples here. Chasm is a company in the US that has a loyalty program for a pretty popular exchange with a unicorn. Not that one, the unicorn horse. I think it's a horse. I don't know. Not the one that you think of, the other one. And it's pretty cool. Beyond Club is a company in Japan that actually is building similar membership program for brands. And YouCollectMe actually just announced today out of Italy that they're creating a loyalty for Web3 creators using Unlock under the hood. And I think that wraps it up for today. Any question?
If somebody have any questions, just raise your hand and we will give you a microphone.
I'm curious if you've thought about transferability as a feature, not a bug, from the perspective of like airline industry, right? There's billions of dollars in liabilities that's carried over year on their balance sheets. And if you unlock a secondary market where people can actually like time to deploy that benefit from a loyalty perspective is shortened, then they might see significant value in that, right?
Yes.
Have you thought about it?
It's definitely one of the questions, and each brand might consider this to be either a loyalty or, an opportunity or a threat. What's interesting about airline and what they do today is they have matching programs. So they don't actually, a third-party airline might actually know that you have a high status with their competitors and will give you, without you transferring, because they don't actually have a way to transfer that other company, a status based on this. I actually think this is something that we'll see often as well. And one thing that I didn't really allude to here in that multiplayer approach, not all of the players have to be opted in. I can decide to offer you a benefit based on the fact that you have a membership that I think is attractive without the author of the membership knowing about this. So maybe, somebody could come up to me, hey, I know you have an Apple laptop. That means that you care about X and Y and Z. I'm going to offer you some specific things here without actually asking Apple's permission. Here, the transparency of the blockchain really shines. There's actually a tangible example of this. I think one coffee shop, if I remember correctly, offered discount to people that were able to prove that they have one of Starbucks NFTs, which is really, really funny in practice because they obviously don't have a relationship with Starbucks in that example.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the whole presentation. I have a question. Maybe I think as consumers and builders in this space, I think we see obvious benefits to transparency and composability that's brought by blockchain and the act of transferring all those legacy loyalty programs onto the chain. But if I put myself in the shoes of a company, isn't there an issue with the lack of incentives of a company to transfer all that CRM basically on the chain?
There's definitely a big risk there. There's two things that I want to say here. A couple of years ago, actually, Vitalik Buterin wrote a blog post, Data as Liability. I think more and more companies are realizing that that data might actually be harder to collect, gather by themselves than keeping it open and opt-in for users. So in that scenario, basically, the company is not the one that are disclosing or storing information in that example. I also think it works both ways, and for me, it reminds me of the early days of the web where companies were really afraid of getting linked to. I mean, there's still debate there. I think there's a couple of weeks ago, there was another company suing another one for linking to their websites. It's like, you can't sue someone for linking to you. And I think it's the same kind of vibes, like what happens if? In practice, I mean, Amazon Prime, I'm sure, is really happy about having whatever hundreds of millions of members in the US. I don't think they would lose anything if, say, Netflix were to offer a discount to Amazon Prime subscribers. It would make the Amazon Prime membership even more valuable to end users, saying, hey, not only I get benefits with Amazon, but I now get benefits with Netflix. I'm not saying this is an easy sell. And when we talk with brands, oftentimes they're like, but I do think that this is something that is what's the right way? Rooted in our existing thinking about data, about relationships, and it might, my hope will not actually represent a real threat, but actually might represent really big opportunities down the line.
Thank you very much. Now, if you want to ask any questions, feel free to come to the speaker. Now we will go to the next topic, NFT, beyond the hype.
Thank you very much.